In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the ButtonWorx keypad repair membrane in the Genesis MX900 Universal Remote Control. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do is take the battery cover off and take out the batteries. This back cover has no screws holding it in. It's got a bunch of clips. You're going to need a small flat screwdriver for prying tool. You're also going to need a small Phillips screwdriver. You'll need Q-tips or some sort of cleaning rag and isopropyl alcohol, and I like 91% the best. It has less water in it. So to get this apart, we need to unsnap the back housing, and there's a bunch of clips on the side, and you take the small screwdriver and just slide it in a little bit between the housings, and then just tilt it a little bit. And I heard a little pop, and you can see that one sort of started to pop out, and I'm gonna leave it alone. There's another one here that sort of popped out. I'm gonna skip up to here. Yeah, and I can see it. I didn't get a popping click that time, but I can see the clip is right there. It's not holding anymore. Come up here, there we go. And now I'm gonna go around and start the other side, not go up the top. And there, nice popping sound there. Okay, so now it's getting pretty loosened up, like that. And I might be able to get it to come off by just doing this a little bit, wiggling it, but looks like I'm gonna have to come up right there. Try it again, and yeah, there we go. It came off. Now you're gonna lose this little plastic button is gonna fall out. Probably this is gonna come out. It's gonna have to come out. It's a little shield. And now put those aside. We've got 3 screws. There's 1, 2, and then 1 down here. 3. So you just take those out. Okay. Now, when we take this apart some more, I want to be very careful. There's an LCD display up here, and it just sort of flops around. We want to make sure we're not breaking any of this stuff off or grabbing on this. I'm going to pull on the bottom down here a little bit and just sort of gently flip it over. Okay, here we go. We got the whole light. There's a plastic, the circuit board, and then you got a plastic light pipe, and then the keypad. So I'm taking the circuit board and the plastic light pipe, flipping it over like that. So the reason these buttons fail, this is the worst kind of rubber button design. It's not a conductive pill that's been inserted. Usually it's like a little rubber conductive pill that they put in when they form the keypad. This is actually painted coating buttons, so it's a very thin coating of conductive carbon on there, and those are the least reliable, and that's why you're having trouble. Now, the display is over the light pipe, so we have to very carefully kind of flip that over. We don't want to mess with that display very much, because you could potentially break it. And then this plastic light pipe comes off like that. And now we have our circuit board buttons. Now, most of the failures are because of the poor button contacts, but I still like to clean the buttons, especially ones that are having trouble. I'll put a little isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip and just kind of go over the buttons I was having the most trouble with, or volume, channel. Might as well just go over all of them. And you can't really hurt anything with isopropyl alcohol in this. So you don't need to scrub really hard unless there's visible buildup or anything. You kind of look, it's you know, I've picked up some dirt. Okay. Once I've got those buttons cleaned, it's time to put on the membrane keypad. Now this is 3 layers, and there's a gap. And when we put this down on the circuit board like this, and then you put the rubber keypad back on, the rubber keypad will press on the membrane keypad. The membrane keypad will press on the buttons, and this will take over the electrical contacts. And then this is actual carbon material, where this is just a painted coating. And this never wears out, and also will block any dirt and oil if you have any trouble with that. But let's just lay this down and we can see how it's gonna line up. There's a tab down here with a hole, and there's a hole cut out there, and a couple holes cut out here. And that's what I'm going to use is also the housing shape. I'm going to use that as a guide to put this down once I've got this peeled off. Now to peel off the brown paper liner, I'm going to find like a corner and just sort of pick at it with my fingernail. Now some people have trouble with this, not many, but I've had a couple people email me and say they had trouble getting the paper liner off. You could use like a sharp knife or a blade, just be careful not to cut yourself, instead of your fingernail, to kind of pick at the corner. It's a lot easier. And one thing you have to be aware of is the membrane keypad is made of multiple layers of plastic. And I've had a couple people actually split the plastic and peel the keypad apart instead of taking the paper liner off. The paper liner, once you start, comes off very easily. There shouldn't be any tugging or anything like that. And if you try to split the keypad apart, it doesn't come apart well because it's glued together. Okay, so now I'm going to line this up and put it down on the keypad, and I'm looking at the holes I was talking about earlier, and there's also some cutouts for some LEDs. So I'm going to come down and just look at the side housing and line it up with that. It looks good. The holes are lined up. Now I just want to place it down, and that's it. I don't want to be pushing on this to make sure it's stuck down or anything. I want to make sure it's not warped or bent or caved in, and if I start pushing on these buttons, I could cave in a button and short it out, and it would be pressing all the time. So we don't want that. So it looks good. Everything's lined up. If I did have problems, I could peel this back up and redo it. You might want to heat it with a hair dryer if it's stuck down more. Just get it warm. It'll come off easier. But this is looking good. And now it's time to put the remote back together. So first thing I do is I put that light pipe back down like that. And you know, you can kind of tell it's, you know, you don't want it upside down. There's a black area here that's going to go on top. There's also different numbers of buttons on each side, so just make sure you get that right, like that. And then carefully move this display over like that. Now just going to show you, if you had this LCD window cover can come out pretty easily, and if that happens to you and you have to put it back, there's a skinny side, skinny border, and a thick border, and the thick border goes on top. If you had it upside down, it won't fit in correctly there. So make sure all the buttons are set down. They're not like sticking up, because they're it'll be hard to put it back together if these aren't all through the plastic housing. Now to put this back on, you might want to clean off if you got any fingerprints on the display or on here, and you might use a clean dry rag to clean any fingerprints off. Now's your chance. Now to put this back on, I'm going to kind of let this display tilt out a little bit, and I'm going to rest it there and put it back together like that. Just place it down, and there's the 2 screws in that screw hole. Kind of line it up. Yeah. And now, just to make sure I did everything right, I'm going to hold the board down, flip it over, and I'm going to make sure the display looks good. There's a couple lines right there. The buttons are all sticking out correctly, and you can kind of push a few to make sure that they feel good. Yeah, so everything looks good. So I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put those 3 screws back in. Okay, now we have the light button, and it just sort of rests right there. And that's on top. There's a button on the circuit board. And we have this light shield. This lets infrared light through and blocks regular light. And it just slides right into a slot right there. Okay. And now we're ready to put this back on. The only tricky thing about this is the battery contact springs here slide into some grooves in the back of there. So that's what I'm going to be concerned about when putting this back down, is that those springs go in the slot. And then it looks lined up, just looking around, and you can just push down a little bit and get a couple of those snaps going, and then you can pick it up and kind of go around the remote and make sure they're all snapped together. Like that. Okay, now the button repair is installed. And I can put the batteries in. LCD good, IR out good. The buttons are much more responsive than they were before. And that's it.